Danny from the Philippines, whatever happened to Buff Bagwell? There are a few different stories about why he was fired from WWE, but the real story is unclear. Do you think he will ever be in the Hall of Fame? Well, right now, Buff Bagwell, last I heard anyway, he's still doing the male escort thing. He was, I can tell you he was also in New Orleans for WrestleMania weekend this year, and I heard some stories about him and the way that he was treating some other people that do not paint him in a very flattering light. Pretty much backed up what I already thought about the guy. As far as WWE, the belief has always been that he just rubbed people the wrong way. His attitude, his shit don't stink, that whole thing. It just rubbed people the wrong way backstage when he first came in. He had the bad match in Tacoma on Raw with Booker T. They were put in an impossible position, but they had a bad match. And it killed WCW. It killed any possibility of a WCW revival. WWE had this all mapped out, and Jim Ross has talked about this. He sat in on a lot of these creative meetings. They mapped out plans for WCW to continue on as a separate brand. They were going to give them the Monday Night Raw slot. I still find that impossible to believe all these years later, but they say it. They claim it's true. They wanted WCW to be a success, and they knew that they couldn't give them the secondary show. They were willing to surrender Monday nights and make that Nitro, basically. I don't know if they were going to call it Nitro or give them the Raw name, but WCW was going to take over on Mondays, and WWE would have SmackDown on Thursdays. That was the plan. And then they sent those two out there. Random match, Booker T against Buff Bagwell. And the fans just shit all over them. And it scared off Vince McMahon, and that was it. Plus, Buff has always blamed Jim Ross for spreading what he claims is a false story. You probably heard this about Buff's mom, Judy, that being former WCW Tag Team Champion on a pole, Judy Bagwell, calling the WWE offices on behalf of her son. JR told the story on one of those old Legends Roundtable shows on the network. Which I wish they would resurrect, by the way. I enjoy Table for Three. I think it's great. But those old Legends Roundtable shows they used to do many years ago are still, I think, some of the best shows they ever produced. I wish they would bring those back. But on one of those shows, he told the story because, at the time, JR was the head of talent relations. So he had the job of, having to make phone calls sometimes to fire people. And he fired Buff. But, he told the story that Buff's mom, Judy, called him. She called the office one day to inform him that her son would not be able to appear on some house shows. I think he may have had a concussion or claimed he had a concussion or whatever the issue was. And JR just said to her, he says, look, if you want to call me to talk, that's fine. But when it comes to your son, this is the last conversation that you and I are ever going to have about your son. He's a grown man. He should be calling me himself, not you. And, Buff denies that ever happened. He said this bullshit. He blames JR. Oh, he ruined my career. It's way more believable to me that Buff ruined his own career because of his attitude. And frankly, he just wasn't very good. He was not very good. And I have no idea what incentive Jim Ross would have to make up a story about the man's mother calling the office on his behalf. It's a very bizarre story for him to manufacture. So I tend to side with JR in this one. As far as Hall of Fame, no. Buff Bagwell should not be anywhere near the WWE Hall of Fame.